The Flash opened to $55 million in his opening weekend on a budget of $220 million, plus, I believe, an extra $100 million for marketing and all that stuff. So what is the problem? What is wrong with DC, man? Dead on arrival. Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Black Adam, these DC movies are just getting worse and worse, and less people are interested in the DC universe and coming to check out these movies. What does this mean? Does this mean that Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 are also doomed to open to abysmal box office numbers? What is going on, man? Like, I know what's going on. I know exactly what's going on. I think I'm going to talk about it in this video. If you don't know what's going on and you want to hear my thoughts and my opinions on what exactly is happening in the DC universe, then stick around till the end of this video because I'm going to talk about it. So I usually have 3 points, but I feel like today I'm just going to do a just jumbled mess of my opinions and just kind of what exactly I think is going on. So there's one big event that set in motion a lot of things. Black Adam was a very unpopular villain, a very unpopular DC character, so not very many people knew who Black Adam was. It was kind of boosted by The Rock's star power, but a lot of people saw the trailers and thought it looked pretty, underwhelming. The Black Adam movie has been in production for over a decade. The Flash has also been in production for over a decade, and it finally comes out and opens to just barely, I think, more than Black Adam. What is the deal? Well, first of all, I think that Warner Brothers made a grave mistake when they had James Gunn come out. Well, they announced that they're shifting their universe and everything. We're just going to push the reboot button. We're not going to try to fix our universe for whatever reason. They just hate Snyder. This whole thing has been going on for so long, years into the past, because if you don't remember, the whole thing with Justice League, when Justice League came out, people didn't like it, and it looked like a very chopped up mess because during the production, Zack Snyder, who was the original director, was kicked out by Warner Brothers. The head at the time, Walter Hamada, he wanted James Gunn out, and he didn't really like what James Gunn was doing. James Gunn had a very creative vision. I really was a James Gunn fan. I was behind everything he was doing, and a lot of people weren't because he's a polarizing guy. When you do things and have a vision for your art, obviously you're not going to please everyone, but he knew what he was doing and he knew what he wanted to do, so he was doing what he saw fit for his Justice League DC universe. It's not my place to say because I don't know everything that was going on, but I believe Walter Hamada was not the greatest of guys. I mean, Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg, he left and he was supposed to be in the Flash movie, but he wasn't. He didn't return to the role of Cyborg because he just really didn't like what Walter Hamada was doing. He didn't like him as a person. So he left. Walter Hamada, for whatever reason, wanted Snyder out, and he didn't want to do anything related to Snyder's vision, so they were adamantly against Zack Snyder. And they used the death of Zack Snyder's daughter, who committed suicide, a very tragic and terrible thing that happened when he was away. Because of that, they used that as an excuse to bring in Joss Whedon, who was the director of the Avengers, who they saw was probably a better fit for the director of Justice League to add in jokes, add in things that people would like more, because Zack Snyder with Batman v Superman and Man of Steel, his vision was polarizing people, so they just said, what's the easiest thing to do that's going to please all the people? So then they brought Joss Whedon in. When Justice League came out, it didn't make the most amount of money. People were kind of disappointed by it because half of it was Zack Snyder's vision and half of it was Joss Whedon's vision. And both of their visions are not compatible in any way, shape, or form because Zack Snyder has this dark, cynical, kind of more grounded vision on what the DC universe should be, and Joss Whedon has this very fun, lively, energetic, jokey kind of tone for his movies. So whoever came up with the bright idea to put their two visions in the same movie, I don't know, I think should get fired. I'm pretty sure they did because Walter Hamada is not there anymore. After Justice League and the whole, after they let Zack Snyder release his full cut of the movie 4 hours long, they even let him reshoot and redo some parts of the movie for HBO Max, and they released it on there. This is the 4-hour version of Zack Snyder's movie, which people loved for the most part. It said was amazing and much, much better than the original cut. After that, they're not going to move forward with anything Zack Snyder set up or had in mind for what he wanted for his DC universe, and Walter Hamada was fired and taken out and then was replaced, I think, some people from Discovery or something, like Warner Brothers merged with Discovery or something like that, and then Discovery team came over, and there's new people now in charge of DC. Now, obviously James Gunn and Peter Safran are like the heads of DC, and they're just going to move ahead with their new DC universe now. So, there's just been a lot of changes and stuff involved. So the DC universe has just been in great jeopardy because at the time that Snyder was kind of heading things up, and they were doing Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam, Suicide Squad, blah, 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 all these other things, The DC Extended Universe was the name of it, DCEU, and it was kind of playing catch up with Marvel, I feel like, for most of its existence. They did Man of Steel. Zack Snyder really put his heart and soul into that. But then Man of Steel 2, they decided to rush Batman into the picture and just cast Ben Affleck as him, blah, blah, blah. They did this. Warner Brothers was like, we got to have Batman now. We got to introduce Batman. Instead of taking the time to set up their universe and slowly build out everything to make sure everything is all fleshed out like Marvel did, where they introduced Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, all these separate characters separately. So they just kind of hijacked Snyder's idea. And this is another example of a studio messing with a director's creative vision and it never working out well. So then, the DC Universe was just kind of a jumbled mess of just like, they were just instead of being proactive and proactively setting up their story, building out these original ideas and trying to be creative and original and brilliant and coming out with new ideas for how they should build out their universe, instead of being proactive, they were being reactive. And they were just reacting and shifting their plans and rushing their schedules based on how well the MCU did or what new idea the MCU presented that was new and different and fresh and awesome and breaking records all across the board. DC was like, we got to do that. What should we do to combat that? Because DC and Marvel have always been at odds for decades. It's like Pepsi and Coke, PlayStation and Xbox, all these other companies that have just been at war with each other because they're both the two biggest superhero companies on the world. They've always been at odds, and so DC and Marvel having two cinematic universes at the same time running together, all of a sudden it's like, wow. Like Marvel was blowing DC out of the water like crazy good, because Marvel they had Kevin Feige overseeing their whole thing, and he was being proactive. He had his idea for the cinematic universe and they were executing that one guy's vision that was being executed, whereas DC was just kind of playing catch up again. So they were just reacting to whatever Marvel did. And their universe was just kind of a jumbled mess of all this other stuff. Just like one-off idea here, Suicide Squad here, Aquaman here, Shazam. How do they all really fit into this universe? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. That's how it was. And then it collapsed with Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. And now we're getting to The Flash and just Aquaman and Blue Beetle, which are kind of the remnants of this DC extended universe that was something that was a cinematic universe, but now has just collapsed into bleh. So Peter Safran, James Gunn, they have a new vision for what they want to do, which is a much better idea. They're being proactive now. They're executing their idea. Time will tell if it's good ideas or not, but they're definitely executing their own ideas now. And they're moving on into the future with their original ideas. So now James Gunn has come out and they did this video on social media where he talked about their plans for the DC universe. And he mentioned that these movies, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Black Adam, Aquaman 2, and Blue Beetle, are just the leftovers of this once big cinematic universe. And now these are going to be the last ones of this dying breed before we move on and reboot everything in the DC universe. So now that they announced that, I think fans are really just like, well, what's the point? Why do we have to go see Shazam 2 or The Flash? I think definitely Aquaman and Blue Beetle. I'm really nervous for what those numbers are going to be, because those two movies are definitely going to do much worse than The Flash and Shazam, which were kind of slam dunks, in my opinion. Now they've both flopped, so Aquaman 2 and Blue Beetle are definitely in high jeopardy. It's very unclear what exactly is going to happen with those movies. I don't think they're going to do very well at all, because with The Flash, another factor that was feeding into why people didn't go see the movie was because its main lead, Ezra Miller, has been getting crazy headlines, and many people are against the actions of Ezra Miller, and they're just decided, well, I'm not going to support Ezra Miller as an actor in The Flash playing the main character because of the things he's done in real life, because he's kind of like a criminal at this point. So that's completely understandable. And a lot of people didn't go see it because of that, but there were also other reasons, they really shot themselves in the foot really bad when they announced that this universe is getting reset totally, 100%, nothing matters anymore. So then the fans are like, well, then what's the point? We're not going to go see The Flash, or definitely not Shazam 2, because it's just a remnant of this past cinematic universe that's being rebooted anyway. So why would I care? Why would I go see Shazam 2? And The Flash, by the get to the end of the movie, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie yet, which I don't know if anyone really wants to. Obviously, the box office numbers show that. By the end of this movie, they didn't really reset the universe. It's very unclear where they're going. Just George Clooney shows up as Batman, and it doesn't seem like he's connected to the larger DC universe that's now going to be the main DC universe in any way. I'm really nervous for Blue Beetle and Aquaman because Sholo, I forget how to pronounce his last name, the actor from Cobra Kai who's playing Blue Beetle, he has star power, but he's a relatively new star. His main thing is Cobra Kai. This is his first theatrical movie. So Blue Beetle, not as well known of a character to the general public, but to comic book fans, obviously he's a well-known character. But to general public, Blue Beetle is not exactly a well-known character. So being his theatrical debut, and people even from the trailers are saying it looks mid. Blue Beetle, people are not super hyped about it. They just think it looks like Iron Man and Spider-Man combined, and like it just does not look super great. I think it looks like a pretty fun and entertaining movie. I'm pretty excited for Blue Beetle because I like the character, and I've known of the character for a while. So I like the character of Blue Beetle, and I like the actor from Cobra Kai. I think he's a good actor. I like him in Cobra Kai. So I'm excited for Blue Beetle, but a lot of people aren't because they think it looks just relatively disappointing and underwhelming. Aquaman 2, we don't need to talk about all the issues that movie has. It's been like shot over a year and a half ago. Apparently there are people who are seeing the movie, just they've been seeing it recently. There was someone who saw it a year ago. It has a completely different movie from what's been shown recently. Like people who are seeing it in early press screenings and that kind of thing, and test screenings and that kind of thing, the movie is being changed so much in the editing room. And they shot it like over a year ago, and they're just reworking and reshooting, and all that stuff's going on right now. They're just completely redoing this movie. So who knows what it's going to be? Who knows how much of a jumbled mess it's going to be? The Flash was definitely the definition of a jumbled mess. There was a lot of things in it that were cut around and reshuffled and all this different stuff. So it's definitely like I'm scared for Aquaman 2, very much scared for Aquaman 2. I'm really nervous about it because, not to mention Amber Heard, who is going to have a part in this movie as Mira, where Warner Brothers refuses to cut people who the society and the public general audience views as literal criminals. For whatever reason, they refuse to cut them out of their movies. They're going to support Ezra Miller as the Flash, and they're going to support Amber Heard as Mira in Aquaman 2. I don't know why they do this, because obviously, like we've seen with the Flash recently, it doesn't work out. So Aquaman 2 is very much probably more in jeopardy than Blue Beetle, because although Aquaman, the first one, made over $1 billion, that was mostly in other countries, not the U.S. So me living in the U.S., I don't know how well people here are going to watch it even. And I don't know if people outside the country really know or care about the whole Amber Heard stuff, but people in the U.S. I know are definitely not going to go see this movie because people liked Aquaman, but people didn't love Aquaman. They thought it was fine, and definitely not after the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. People are not going to support Amber Heard. So that movie is going to do abysmal at the box office. I mean, DC, they canceled the Batwoman movie. They reshuffled all this other stuff. There's been so much happening behind the scenes. There's so much going on. And I think fans are just like, well, what's the point? Why would I want to go see The Flash? Why would I want to go see Blue Beetle or Aquaman 2? Because it's all going to be rebooted anyway. Blue Beetle's kind of being marketed. James Gunn said it was the prologue to the new DC universe. But it's still like he's not a very well-known character. The actor doesn't have enough star power to carry the movie by himself. So it's like, who cares? You know, which I don't feel that way, but that's what the general audience feels. And me being one person, it doesn't make a difference what I think, because the movie is not going to rely on me to go carry the movie. So I think that's what a lot of people are feeling. I don't think superhero fatigue is a thing that exists. I don't think people are getting tired of superhero movies. I think they're getting tired of the same superhero movies, like just the same complacent level of content quality for Disney and Marvel. People are getting tired of that. They want high quality, fresh, new, different movies, not the same thing over and over again regurgitated. People are starting to get kind of sick of that. I don't think superhero fatigue exists. People are not just getting tired of superhero movies in general. I don't think that's a thing. Superhero fatigue is not a real thing. People love original stories. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse doing exceptionally well at the box office, breaking all kinds of records. I think it's going to pass $1 billion. That's my guess for the box office. Doing exceptionally well. So people are not tired of superhero movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, people love that movie. But DC is really struggling because they're just struggling to find out what they're doing with their universe. And I think this is a particularly hard time right now that we're going through, because it's a reshuffle. We're in the middle. We're in between the eras. We're in between the past era of the DC Extended Universe, in between the new one of the DC Universe, and we're just kind of in the middle of a transition period. So I think this is going to be a hard period for DC. But I'm hopeful, and I don't know, but I'm hopeful that when the DC Universe ball gets rolling, then they will eventually start making their money back and people get more invested in the DC Universe as it moves forward. But as of right now, as we're in between the past era of Zack Snyder's DC Extended Universe and in between the new James Gunn, Peter Safran era of DC Universe, this is just going to be a hard transition period because these movies that are kind of leftovers of the DC extended universe and kind of like maybe going to kind of set up the new DC universe. We're in between these two eras, and these movies are just going to fail. They're just going to be dead on arrival. They're not going to do well, just regardless of how good of a movie they are, just because people don't care. So, I mean, it's sad, sure, for all the people who work so hard on these movies to like, it's not even their fault that these movies are failing. But also, like, when Warner Brothers is promoting Amber Heard and Ezra Miller and refusing to cut them out of these movies, which Ezra Miller, his performance in the movie was very good. I enjoyed his performance in The Flash. He did a good job. I don't know. I don't think Amber Heard's a phenomenal actress, though. So, like, I don't know why they're refusing to cut out these, like, people who people view as criminals from their movies, which is obviously hurting their box office. I don't know why they refuse to do that, but that's also another factor of it. And people also just, the bottom line is they just don't care. But we've also got, like we got the Batman 2 and the Joker 2 and all these separate things that are also not at all connected to their universe. So it's also just confusing. Like, we've got Batman 2, the Batman 2 coming out, but also we have Batman Brave and the Bold, which is going to be a completely separate person playing Batman. We have Superman Legacy with a new actor of Superman. Like, it's just a tough transition period, I feel like. But also, DC's making weird choices. Choices that are kind of polarizing to a lot of different people. So it makes sense that people will not want to go support their movies if they're doing things that people don't exactly like. I just don't think they have their finger fully on the pulse for what the fans want and what the fans are feeling about all this. Like, they don't have their finger on the pulse of people don't want to support a movie with Ezra Miller in it. People don't want to go see a movie that has Amber Heard prominently featured in it. I don't know why they don't have their finger on the pulse. Like, why don't they understand that? It would be easier for them to cut that person out of the movie and then make their money back when the movie actually does well than to just include them in the movie and then make less money and have the movie bomb and fail. They just don't. I feel like they don't accurately understand what the fans are wanting and what the fans are interested in. Because James Gunn also, like, he has a singular creative vision. And as I mentioned before, we'll have to see how that pays off because he also likes these really weird side characters that nobody knows about. That's what he did with the Guardians of the Galaxy. He made them A-list characters, of course, because he made them super popular amongst the general public. But also, like, he's starting his universe off with, like, the Authority and the Creature Commandos being his, like, main characters, even though, like us as fans, I don't care what James Gunn's favorite characters are, his, like, random one-off side characters that he thinks are important. I think James Gunn's a very creative person, and I love James Gunn's work. I think he's an awesome dude, and he's a true comic book nerd, and I love him for that. But he also loves these random characters that nobody's ever heard of, even amongst comic book hardcore fans. And he's like, I don't care what he wants. I think what the fans want, or at least what I want, and I don't want to speak on behalf of other people, and you should never let my opinions influence yours. You should make your own opinions about this stuff. But what I want to see is just Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Justice League, the main characters who are the most popular, who we've seen millions of times before. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see that done well. We haven't had a good Justice League live-action theatrical movie yet that's been in theaters. Zack Snyder's Justice League was not in theaters, and that was a great Justice League movie. It was awesome. But it wasn't in theaters because Warner Brothers, for whatever reason, had a personal vendetta against Zack Snyder. I don't care what James Gunn's favorite little characters are that nobody's ever heard of. I just want to see the classic stuff done in a new, fresh, interesting way. But we're not going to get that. I feel like DC just doesn't fully know what the fans want, and they're not really listening. Marvel listens to what the fans want. Marvel does not listen to fans necessarily. They're not reactive. They're proactive, but in a good way because Marvel knows what we want before we want it. With all this stuff in the MCU, even especially in the early days, just mostly with the Infinity Saga, even James Gunn was a part of this. He gave us the Guardians of the Galaxy, which we now love so much. And this could happen again with the Creature Commandos or the Authority or whatever he's doing. That could happen, and I do hope that that's going to happen. That's going to be the case. But I'm doubtful about it. Marvel knew what we wanted before we wanted it. And they just gave the fans everything the fans could ever ask for with the Infinity Saga. The story of Iron Man being our central character and how he grew and changed and had a awesome character arc. It was amazing. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, which was an idea, the cinematic universe, that had never been done before. All these movies that are their own separate franchises, they have their own sequels and series and all this stuff, but they all interconnect and they cross over into each other's movies. A cinematic universe, that was a completely new idea. Nobody had ever thought of that before. And the DC universe, it just seems like they don't have their finger on the pulse. They don't know what the fans want. They're just being reactive to whatever Marvel does. I hope they can fix that, and I think James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to fix that. I hope it gets better, man, because I love DC and I love DC characters and I love the DC universe. So I hope it turns around for the better. But I think we're in just a hard transition period right now. Like it's tough, man, to watch these numbers. Because The Flash is a fine movie. It's not an amazing movie, but it's also not a terrible movie. So I mean, it's a transition period. So we'll get through this, hopefully, trudgingly, slowly, and then we can look to the future for how the DC universe is going to pan out as the years go on. I hope it'll get better. I think it will, probably. So I'm optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. So there you go. There's all my thoughts on the DC universe and everything that's going wrong and all that stuff. So what are your thoughts on this whole situation? Are you excited for the future of DC? Are you worried or nervous? Just be sure to let me know all your comments down below in the comment section. And I hope you will, if you like this video, be sure to like this video, leave a like on it, and subscribe if you want to see my videos as soon as they come out, because I'm guessing you like movies if you watch this video all the way to the end. If you do like movies, be sure to click that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you can be notified as soon as I drop a new video. Click right here on my face to see another video by me. I make some pretty cool videos. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.